If you have a tendency of caring too much about whether or not other people like you, then today I've got a story to share and some lessons that I have learned on this subject. As a person who can tend to be a bit too empathetic, probably, and care too much about what other people are thinking and feeling about me and whether or not they like me, I can speak from personal experience that worrying too much about this can be incredibly debilitating, can be stifling, can be immobilizing. And yeah, learning how to become free of caring too much about whether other people like me or accept me, it's an extraordinary freedom. The freedom of from caring about what other people think. Whew, that is kind of, to me, that's like huge, huge freedom. And every time I taste it, every time I step a little bit further into it, it feels absolutely amazing. And the story I want to share today, it took place about 3 years ago. I was going through a breakup, and I had ended the relationship with my girlfriend, then ex girlfriend. And one of the patterns that I had played out during the relationship is I kind of took on the role of caretaker, being my girlfriend's like emotional support in a way that didn't really work ultimately for like a healthy, happy relationship. And it was even more unhelpful when after we broke up, we wanted to continue being friends because we loved each other, we respected each other, we were friends. And I continued trying to be the caretaker, trying to support her as she moved through the pain and sorrow of a breakup. The only problem was that I was probably one of the worst people to be her emotional support going through a breakup because I was the guy that she needed to like disentangle herself from. And I was like slowly starting to realize this over the days and weeks that after we broke up, that I would like try to support her, try to console her and soothe her pain. um, it was slowly dawning on me that I'm not sure I'm the right person to be doing this, because the better job I do, the more we're staying intertwined instead of the inevitable difficult thing for both of us, which is pulling apart and reestablishing some boundaries. And one day during this process, this phase, she got really mad at me. It just kind of burst out of seemingly nowhere during a conversation. There was just all of this resentment and rage. It just came out. She just started venting. And I remember thinking, as it was happening, I remember thinking to myself, this seems healthy. This seems like a good thing to be happening. And she was really angry and saying these vicious things that I didn't believe were true about myself. But instead of getting defensive, instead of my ego and my pride wanting to like correct her and preserve my sense of dignity or goodness or whatever, instead of feeling like, hey, I'm Mr. Nice, let me correct your perception of me. And, I want to feel validated. I want to feel like I'm a good person. Um, Instead of thinking or feeling any of that, I just thought, I think this is good. I think you should feel this. I don't agree with, I told her, I was like, this feels healthy. This feels like a healthy thing. I feel like you need to be pissed off at me. I feel like you need to feel whatever you're feeling. And I don't necessarily agree with the things you're saying, but it's like, yeah, feel that fire. Because I guess anger, I think one of its functions as an emotion is to create boundaries. And that is, in that moment, that was my hypothesis, was that she was feeling this flood of anger because that was necessary to feel towards me in order to like push me out of, she had to like reorient herself emotionally, and she needed to push me out from the center of her emotional landscape where I had been sitting for a while. I no longer got to live there because that we were actually doing this thing called breaking up. Yeah, it was this rare moment where my pride and my ego were calm enough that I could just accept someone not liking me and not try to defend myself, not enter into some kind of argument about the things she was saying, but kind of just respect it in this broad sense. And lucky for me, it's a few years later and I am still friends with that person. They're amazing. It's a beautiful thing to be able to, have that friendship continue over time, and also to know that someone can get super pissed off at you and you can still love each other and be friends on the other side of that. In fact, that's probably most friendships and most relationships. And it's hard to remember that in the moment when somebody is saying things and feeling things. But it's a great freedom to be able to remember it. And I was thinking about that story recently because a friend was going through a breakup, and he also broke up with a woman, and she had gotten really upset at him and had kind of like vented her frustration and resentment. And he was saying how it was like annoying to him and immature. And I, I kind of challenged him on that. I was like, I don't know if it's immature. I think it might be really healthy. And I told him that story that I just shared. And it kind of just changed. It changed how he was feeling about it, because he realized that he was trying to defend himself, and he hadn't been respecting that anger probably served a purpose. That woman actually needed to kick his butt out of her emotional landscape and reorganize it and reorient it. And yeah, there might be a way of doing it without getting pissed off, but if that's what works, throw some of that heat in there, throw some of that spice on, get it going. Because in the case of me and my ex, who I was talking about, that wasn't somewhere that she stayed. That was just like some feelings that moved through, not even for long. And on the other side of that, there's love and friendship and understanding. And yeah, I know that as I go through life, it's a lesson that I really need to carry and I need to remind myself of every day, because when I go into that kind of that more insecure, younger part of myself that really feels like it wants to be liked by everybody, and it wants to be understood and validated and supported by everybody. Man, that keeps me from doing anything. Keeps me from taking, because almost everything that I have to do in life that's enjoyable, not everything, but a lot of things require some risk. Creating this podcast or this video, however you're watching or listening to it, that's a risk. Somebody might see this and think it's corny as hell. This guy is so sentimental. He's just some chump that thinks he knows more than he does. He's, people, not everybody will see it in a generous light, and I have to be comfortable with that, or I can't do it. And the more comfortable with it that I am, the more natural my voice can be and the more free I can feel. And same with writing. I have to be, there's a vulnerability inherent to all these things. And the more I can allow for other people to feel whatever they're going to feel and understand that that's just another person's reality. That's just another, it's not easy, but to me, that's like one of the most profound forms of freedom. Shame and insecurity. There's financial freedom that doesn't touch a person's shame and insecurity. That does not make a person emotionally resilient in the face of being disliked or shunned by the tribe or whatever. Developing the muscle of learning how to not flinch when somebody has a bit of anger, when somebody, to be receptive and be a person of integrity, but also to be able to walk through this world. And when someone snaps at me, to be able to be like, yeah, that's cool. We're good. Like to not have to like constantly go to battle or to hide and protect myself from those things. That feels like one of the most profound freedoms. And I get tastes of it. I get glimpses of it. I push myself into it here and there. Um, and it's a very remarkable thing. And one thing that is very interesting that I've noticed about being disliked is I feel like the people who have felt the most resentment towards me, the people who have felt the strongest negative feelings towards me in my life, um, they've generally been people who really care about me and really love me and feel some kind of resentment towards me because they feel rejected or betrayed or unseen or misunderstood. It's like there's this love and then something that just kind of like twists it into anger or resentment or rage or whatever. And I feel like that gives me some clues into the nature of hatred and anger and disliking things. It's like if there's a really strong feeling there, anger and hatred, they often have tenderness, vulnerability, and love right underneath them. And I think sometimes for me, returning to that awareness can be very helpful in kind of creating a buffer between me and other people's negative feelings or negative reactions. And I'm not great at this. I am a man in process, and this is part of it. This my journey as an author, podcaster, creator. It's a beautiful form of inner work in a sense because there's this growing confidence and courage that's being forged through creating work and sharing it, and sometimes having it just go out to the crickets, and sometimes having people write a nasty kind of character assassination towards me about it, and more significantly than that, having it connect with people sometimes in a way that's deep and meaningful and worth it. And I grow through it. Sometimes the people watching and listening grow, or reading grow through it. So it's win, win, win. And if there's a hater out there, they get some fun. They get someone to make fun of whose whole purpose is to learn how to not get too upset about it. Anyhow, just some thoughts to share. This topic is vast, 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 and I've really only touched the surface of it. But when we care less about whether or not other people like or dislike us, just makes it more possible for us to show up naturally, confidently, and usually people like that. Oftentimes people respect it. They're like, damn, that's badass. And I'm just here learning about it like all of us. If you liked this, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing to the channel. If you want to check out my book, you'll find a link to that in the description or in the show notes. And until next time, have an amazing day.